This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
He's Greg, I'm Nick. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Also, take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Greg, let's start before we get into the game on Sunday night with the injury report. Now, we're recording this early afternoon on Thursday, so we're going to go off Wednesday's report. The DNPs, K'Lavon Chaisson and Jalen Hawkins, what kind of impact do you think that would have on this defense if one or both of those guys can't go?
I think Hawkins would be huge because, how many times have we talked about the safeties, on this team and some of the decisions that they've made, like, releasing Jabril Peppers. And, it's, you look at that group, it's if Jalen Hawkins can't go, I would assume it would be Kyle Duggar. I mean, you basically have your choice of Kyle Duggar, Del Pettis, or Marte Mapu if you want to move him back to safety, but he hasn't been there, since last year, maybe when he was healthy for one of the few times he was. So I don't really see that being an option. Plus, they're probably going to need him at linebacker in the matchup game against, their tight ends and running backs. So I think the Hawkins thing is huge. Chaisson, I think he was in the locker room yesterday and spoke. So, I know it says a knee. I think he's sort of on the veteran program, or if he has a little something, bothering him. They do have they have better depth at edge. I mean, between Anthony Jennings or, Keon White, who seemed to play a little bit better last week. But the Jalen Hawkins injury would be pretty big. He got off to a rocky start, but and also, the way they've been calling things or sort of tweaking how they're doing things. He's been more of the deep safety guy, don't get beat over the top. And he's done a better job in the past couple games. Like, he's not like, when I grade the game, he doesn't really show up one way or the other, positive or negative. He's just sort of, almost in that Devin McCourty sort of deep safety role where you're not really making a whole lot of plays. And I don't think, the Bills aren't exactly like a deep passing team. So, who would they put back there? I mean, I guess if they're going to continue to do the same sort of thing, the Bills are very good at running the ball, or at least have been. The Patriots are very good at stopping the run. Do they play more too high? Do they move Woodson to the deep safety and make Kyle Duggar more of the, strong safety, but also, the robber in passing situations? A lot of interesting sort of permutations that you can come up with in terms of the safety spot.
Yeah, and Kyle Duggar was the one that replaced Jalen Hawkins last weekend when Hawkins went out with the hamstring. So one would assume it would be Kyle Duggar. And of course, you and I know, we've talked about it for the past couple of years. Duggar's given up some big plays, as we know, in coverage. So, how do you roll?
Especially against this team. Duggar was it seemed like every time they played the Bills, Josh Allen would have one of these plays where he's just rolling to the right, keeping it extended, and then Kyle Duggar would peek the wrong way and get beat over the top.
Yeah, and then you have Woodson, who's been running a little hot and cold, right? He makes some plays, then he makes some mistakes, which could be anticipated for a rookie who's playing like 99% of the snaps. There's going to be some ups and downs. Offensively, Jared Wilson was limited with an ankle and knee. He was seen with a big brace on his leg. If Jared Wilson couldn't go Sunday night, Greg, are you okay with Ben Brown?
Yeah, I thought Ben Brown did a pretty good job, in that game against the Panthers. Of course, this is a different challenge, and we'll see exactly who's back in the lineup, who isn't for the Bills as far as their defense. I mean, namely Ed Oliver, who would make a big difference up there. But yeah, Ben Brown is pretty sound. He really reminds me a lot of early days sort of Ted Karras,
Yeah.
before Ted Karras became like an NFL starter. I've been impressed with Ben Brown since basically he stepped onto the field with the Patriots, which, you know, he signed on like a Tuesday and started on like a Sunday. Last year was mostly a center. He expanded his repertoire to guard this year in training camp. You know, he's not outstanding in any way. I would say his pass blocking is better than anything. He doesn't get a whole lot of movement in the run game, even though he did have a couple of, you know, pretty good run blocks, including on you know, a touchdown against the Panthers. But yeah, if Wilson can't go, I mean, I actually might feel better having Ben Brown in this game than Wilson, just, you know, given the atmosphere that they're going to encounter being on the road. You know, penalties go up, miscues go up. Even though I have a lot of confidence in Jared Wilson, just, you know, this early, I might actually be better with Brown playing left guard.
You mentioned Ed Oliver. So let's look at the Bills injury report because they've been banged up, but they got limited practices on Wednesday from both Oliver and Matt Milano. How different would the game be if those two guys are able to go?
It would be huge. I am not over, and we'll get into this more. I am not overly impressed with the Bills defense. On film, you look at the metrics, you know, they're not very good against the run. I don't think they're great against the pass. I don't think their safety play, which is really the most important thing in a Sean McDermott defense. I don't think it's been great, and also the linebacker play has been iffy. If they can get Milano back, and put him in the middle there, I think it does settle things down a little bit for them. Ed Oliver's really, really good, you know, on the defensive line. And, you know, he makes a big difference. And, you know, even though I will say, I think it's, you know, Deion Walker, number 96 rookie, 4th round pick. He's done a pretty good job. He's pretty good on film, but, you know, it is a rookie. And, Oliver makes a big difference because, you know, you look at this Bills team and like they're not very big, especially once you get past the defensive line. The linebackers, the safeties, the corners, you know, they're all kind of small. And so, you know, Oliver helps. Even if Milano's back in, he's kind of small. You know, but yeah, those guys would be huge. And then also, you know, on the offensive side of the ball, you know, Spencer Brown missed last week. Their starting right tackle. He's pretty damn good. When he's out there. You know, the right tackle that they had in there last week. It's like Vandemark. He had some issues in that game against the Saints. You know, he had to go up against Cam Jordan, which isn't a picnic for anybody. But if they can get those three guys back and they're healthy and, you know, up to their normal level of play, that would make a huge difference for both sides of the ball in Buffalo.
Yeah, Spencer Brown was limited during Wednesday's practice. Keep an eye on that. Another guy we got to keep an eye on is Jackson Hawes, who's done a really good job blocking. He's a tight end, and he's been one of the reasons why Buffalo's been able to run the ball so effectively. He was also limited at Wednesday's practice. So, you know, if you're down Brown and Hawes, that will impact the run game at least a little bit for Buffalo. And also keep an eye on, Greg mentioned Matt Milano is a little smaller. He's been banged up a lot the past couple of years. If he does play, how much will he play? And Dorian Williams, who's also a linebacker on the team, he was a DNP on Wednesday due to a knee issue. So, you know, if Milano can't go, you know, more than 20, 30 snaps, if he comes back limited in any way, well, now one of their backup linebackers is also banged up, which could be a problem for the Bills on Sunday night. All right, before we get into this game specifically and break some things down, Greg's going to tell you about Prize Picks.
Yes, I am. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, football, esports, and much more. So tonight, if you wanted to, you could sit down. This is what I'm going to do. You know, you got Thursday night football, pretty good matchup, Rams, 49ers. You got the Red Sox, of course, in game 3. If you think Early is going to be a stud, make a pick with him involved. across those sports and cash in. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
And for those listening, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like and leave a review. For those watching the show on CLNS, go ahead and hit that like button. Give us that thumbs up. Subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. Also, check Greg and Mike Giardi out at BSJ. $50 for the year. Fantastic deal. Film, best sources, Patriots talk, good stuff over at BSJ. All right, before we get into offense, defense, all the good stuff, let's just talk about the game overall. How important do you think, Greg, this game is on Sunday night for the Patriots? I've heard some people ask the question, are you okay with a moral victory on Sunday night? How you feel about going into this one?
I think with this game, I mean, look, let's first talk about the atmosphere. I think it's going, we all know, Buffalo in a night game. That's always challenging enough. I don't know how much it adds to it, but Buffalo is going to be wearing their rivalry uniform, which is like this all white thing. Josh Allen's going to look like, or maybe Deion Dawkins is going to look like the Marshmallow Man or something like that. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. But it's the Bills are encouraging fans to make it a whiteout game, like we're back in college at like Penn State. Didn't work for the Nittany Lions last week against Oregon. So, and they're going to be passing out white towels. Like it's going to be a scene, man. Very warm. It's supposed to be in like the 70s or something like that for the game. So, a lot goes into this. I mean, I like this spot for the Patriots. I think they have a chance to hang around. To me, it's more, this game is about, it's about the Patriots, and I need to see, like, can they put, 2 games back to back where they don't shoot themselves in the foot, that they, execute at a high level, that the tackling's good. I've pretty much given up on the penalty thing at this point because it seems, every first half they have like 6 penalties. Remember, being on the road, especially at night, the percentages of penalties for the road team goes up even more, especially like, false start and those sorts of things. So really, I think, to me, I think it's important for the Patriots that they show that they can improve and get a little bit more consistency in their performance. I won't be hugely disappointed. I mean, it is just the 5th game of the season. Like if for some reason they go up there and, they turn the ball over 3 times and they end up losing by double digits to the Bills, like I'm not going to be really all that disappointed, because I do think it's a little early, for this team and this program. I think they're still working out some kinks, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The type of team they want to be. So, I think I get the feeling that a lot of Patriots fans are putting a lot into this game. I understand that they're fans. But, I sort of tried to make this point, with Felger and Maz this week. I don't think it worked out, but like, just, don't ride the wave too much, whether it's about Drake May or it's about this team. Because remember, it is early. And I do think largely, I think they're a little bit, in terms of their results being 2-2, the way it's looked on offense, I do think they're a little ahead of schedule. So if they go into Buffalo and have a really good, really bad performance, or, play below what we expect of them at this point in time, I wouldn't get too exacerbated about it. I would I would just, don't ride the wave. It's okay. Just, see what happens. But, I am expecting a pretty decent performance out of the Patriots up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's only week 5, as you mentioned. And look, there's absolutely the possibility, and some might even argue probability, that the Patriots are overwhelmed on Sunday night. With the atmosphere, everything that's going on. They're a young football team. We can't forget about that. There's, a lot of younger guys that they depend on in big roles, including the quarterback. I think the second Bills game of the season is going to be much more of a barometer of this program. Yep. Because that's, December 14th. You're in the middle of December. And as you and I have discussed so many times on this podcast, the last month of the season is really when you start to see what's happened to your program. And we go back to last year. I hate to do it. I know we all get sick thinking of it, but Gerard Mayo, I mean, the nail in the coffin was after the bye week and getting embarrassed by Arizona and then getting absolutely humiliated by the Chargers at home because, there wasn't any improvement that you could see from month 1, month 2 to the final month of the season. It actually, you could argue, got worse as the year went on. So I think the second game in the middle of December is a much better bellwether for this football team to see what Mike Vrabel has done. I also want to bring up, you mentioned the weather. Yeah, it's summertime in Buffalo this weekend. I mean, you look at it, Saturday is going to be 80. Sunday is going to be 80. Sunday night at kickoff is going to be about 75 degrees. On Thursday, it's going to drop down to 60. So the weather is going to be really, really good. The wind is only going to be, as of right now, 6 or 7 miles per hour. So it is going to be a calm summer night in Buffalo on Sunday. So if you're wondering if weather's going to screw around with the game, it is not going to screw around with that football game. All right, let's look at the quarterbacks, Greg. Drake Maye, Josh Allen. How do you evaluate each guy as we head in?
Well, first with Josh Allen, I think he's spectacular at this point. I mean, I think he threw an interception last week or 2. Did he throw 2?
No, he should have thrown 2. The guy dropped it the second one.
Okay, it's hard to tell when I'm watching on film because I don't have that play-by-play in front of me. But yeah, he definitely had the one pick that he threw was a tremendous play by Saints safety coming over and making a ridiculous catch. And Allen probably wants that throw back where, if he just holds the safety a little bit longer or looks him off or pumps to the left, it's probably a touchdown. Because it was a really nice throw. It was right there. The Saints safety just made a better play. And also his second sort of near interception, it should have been an interception. There were a lot of issues on that play, including pressure. And like James Cook ran a dog crap route out of the backfield. Like it was like, it was like he couldn't be bothered. Like he sort of like trotted through the line and then, okay, maybe I'll turn around. It was too late. Like if he actually ran, he would have been available to Allen. But I just think Allen is spectacular at this point. The way they have the running game really makes with James Cook really makes it a lot easier on him.
Yeah.
The offensive line, they have the lowest pressure rate allowed by far in the league. And, it was a little dicey last week against the Saints without Spencer Brown. If he's back, I think it's like 21% pressure rate on Josh Allen. So you give Josh Allen, and he doesn't even have that great of weapons, but you give him great protection and a running game, like good luck, trying to defend him. And he had another like Josh Allen like scramble last week where it was just absurd, and he's faking people out and breaking tackles to sort of like put the game out of reach. So I think Josh Allen is just spectacular, and good luck to this Patriots defense.
Yeah, the scramble up the middle was a fantastic play by him in the second half. He got about 30 yards on that. I will say he doesn't look to run as much as he used to. If you're thinking of like, old school, his second biggest run was actually a designed run by Joe Brady, which was a fantastic play call in the fourth quarter where he took it outside the tackle for about 15 to 20 yards, pretty much ended the game for all intents and purposes. This is not, like Greg said, this is not an explosive downfield offense. They've got Keon Coleman, who's, the guy they drafted in 2024. They're hoping that he comes around. He's been inconsistent. He had a couple of catches in the first half against the Saints and didn't do much after that. A little inconsistent, not a burner. So he's more of a contested catch downfield guy. So they don't really throw the football down the field a ton. This is a lot of, Khalil Shakir. This is a lot of James Cook. You mix in the tight ends. You scheme some things up. You got Josh Allen, who's as good as he is. And that's really the passing game for them. So I would not anticipate them chucking the ball down the field unless you got Kyle Duggar or Craig Woodson, running around like a chicken with their head cut off, and Allen extends the play and then he chucks a couple bombs down the field. But that's not what this offense is for Buffalo. It's really not. You're looking at a lot of run game and a lot of short stuff and depend on Shakir and Cook to make some plays with their legs. How about Drake Maye?
I like, I like where Drake is. I think he's, way ahead of schedule. I think, each passing week, him and Josh McDaniels seem to be more and more in sync, and Drake's comfortable with what they're doing and, what's being required of him. Also sort of, managing the game and taking the, early check down if something down the field isn't there. I do worry a little bit about Drake Maye being a little amped up for this game.
Yeah.
I think now that being said, the Patriots went to Buffalo last year, and remember, it's a different coaching staff, different personnel. They went to Buffalo last year and raced out to a 14-0 lead. And, Drake Maye was really good. He came out in the first quarter. He was 7 of 9, 79 yards, with a touchdown. They were running the ball. He had a 10-yard run. Stevenson averaged 4.6 yards in the first quarter. It's tough to compare that to this matchup because it was towards the end of the season. We all knew the Patriots were out of it. I'm sure the Bills looked at the Patriots like, let's just get out of this game, healthy. It was the third to last game. So I think Drake's attitude going up there, I want to say I'm sure it was like a 1:00 game. It was a 4:25 game. So, that helps a little bit. It was 14 degrees, that helps in terms of Drake. He's been there in this somewhat similar atmosphere, but I just think where the Patriots are 2-2, the Bills, where they are 4-0, Sunday Night Football. You even heard Drake the other day. He was sort of back to speaking pretty quickly. So I worry about him being a little amped up, but I think it's on Josh McDaniels to anticipate that and, get the kids settled down as soon as possible. But I really, taking that all aside, I really like Drake Maye's ability in this game to really do some things and perhaps have his, we talked about it, a couple times that this season where Drake could sort of have a coming out party. Well, the first time we talked about it was the Dolphins game, and he ended up playing, a terrific game and getting a win. This is another chance for him to sort of take a step forward. And I think national television, he goes out there and he plays like he has the last 3 weeks and takes care of the ball. Then I think this is a big opportunity for him to take another big step forward.
Before we get into the Bills defense and what you see there specifically, just a quick update. The Bills are practicing right now as we record, and Ed Oliver is practicing for a second straight day. Spencer Brown is practicing for a second straight day. Haven't seen anything just yet about Matt Milano, but Spencer Brown and Ed Oliver both out there for the second straight day practicing for the Bills. So even if they're limited, I'd be surprised if Spencer Brown's not out there. We'll see what happens with Ed Oliver. All right, defensively, Greg, why do you feel the way you feel about Drake Maye in this Patriots offense? Doesn't sound like you're too ecstatic about what Buffalo's doing defensively.
No, I mean, they really can't do much of anything, unless they get, pressure from the likes of, Joey Bosa and Rousseau. And, I just don't think they're very good. They're not very good against the run. They are, I was just looking. So the Buffalo is on defense. They are 31st against the run. They are first against the pass, but of course that has something to do with, teams can, run on them. I just look at them and I first of all, they're terrible at cornerback. I think Tre'Davious White got benched at one point last week. He's basically like a holding machine. Like you watch him on film and he's just holding guys like all across the field because he knows he can't keep up anymore. Benford on the other side, is not that great. They don't do very well against multiple tight ends, which the Patriots like to do. They basically run, 2 tight ends almost all of the time. I think that the safeties, Rapp and Bishop's young, Rapp. There are certain times he does make some plays where you like what you see, but for the most part he kind of struggles. I think the linebackers, if they don't have Milano, looks like they are going to have Milano. I mean, even when he's out there, he's limited, but he's a huge key to that defense because Bernard and Williams, who is on the injured list, they're terrible. I'm just not overly impressed at all with this defense and the run defense, especially on the edges. And it's funny because the Patriots and the Bills are somewhat similar to each other in that they've had a lot of issues defending the run on the edge. There's been a real lack of discipline. Like Joey Bosa made some horrible plays last week, getting sucked in on play action, getting sucked inside on run action. They are giving up the Bills defense runs around left end. They are giving up 8 yards a carry. Over right tackle, they're giving up almost 13 yards per carry. Right end, almost 8 yards per carry as well. And so we could see a situation where McDaniels can do a lot of what he did last week against the Panthers, pressing the edges. The Bills are not very disciplined. Their eye discipline is bad. They get sucked up into play action. A lot of the stuff that Josh did last week against the Panthers, I think he can use against this defense, and I think it can be really effective. Now, I think the only thing you have to watch with the Bills is, and this is like usually like really early in the game, they will have some designer, blitzes.
Yeah.
They will have some designer coverages. Like they ran a coverage last week where they showed cover 3, and then I think it was one of the first third downs of the game. They showed cover 3, and then suddenly they dropped back. The 2 corners were actually the 2 safeties, and they ended up in, sort of like a cover 2 look. So you'll get some of that stuff. So Drake could get tripped up a little bit. That's why it's going to be important, especially early in the game, to sort of, take what's there. Don't be afraid of the check down. And I just worry about Drake. If Josh Allen starts doing Josh Allen things, does he get caught up into that and he wants to match them and things like that? We've seen that happen to quarterbacks before.
Situationally, the Bills defense isn't very good. At least analytically, statistically, they're 25th in the NFL, third down defense. And this is important because the Patriots, as we know, they're going for it on fourth down this year. Patriots are the 4th best team in the NFL as far as fourth down. 87.5% they've converted. Pretty crazy rate. The Pats, by the way, are 10th on third down offense, which is obviously good. And the Bills defense is 21st in the red zone, and the Patriots are top 10 in the red zone. So situationally, third down, fourth down, we know Drake Maye's played great on third and fourth down. Those are kind of difference makers there. So could be an interesting matchup. All right, before we get to the defense, let's get to game time.
It's NFL season, and you got MLB playoffs going on, and you got to be there. You got to be there in person to get caught up in it, and you can do that through our friends over at Game Time. The Game Time app gives you the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use. I can attest to that. And the Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. They have zone deals. Save even more when you choose a section, and like Game Time, choose the seats. You can bookmark your favorites, snag a new ticket deal before anyone finds out by following your favorite teams in the Game Time app to receive alerts. They have seat views where you get panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Also, the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. I used them to go to Fenway about a month ago. The experience couldn't have been easier on the app, from getting it downloaded and getting into it to getting my tickets, getting into the MLB ballpark app, and then downloading my tickets to my phone. It probably took me about 5 to 6 minutes total and had no problem at all. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today.
Check out the CLNS YouTube channels, CLNS Media Network. You get Celtics All Access, behind-the-scenes content, segments from a bunch of Celtics podcasts. You can check out the NBA History channel as well, Bruins Ringside, and we always talk about Patriots Press Pass, so you know about that. How much trouble could the Pats defense be in on Sunday night, Greg?
Huge. One thing I did want to mention about the Bills defense, they are 28th in EPA rush allowed, which I think speaks to sort of a lack of discipline up front, weak linebacker play. And then also they are last in explosive play rate allowed, 15%. To me, that speaks to shaky safety play and shaky cornerback play. And so
here's an interesting note I want to throw on top of that is I was looking this up. The Bills pass defense, they are dead last. They are 32nd in the league in average target separation, which lends to what Greg was just saying. And the Patriots, if you're wondering, because we've talked a lot about separation, the Patriots have the 7th best average target separation in the league through the first month. So that tells us, McDaniel's scheme, receivers, they're causing some separation. And as Greg mentioned, the Bills secondary, they're giving up tons of space to receivers. So there could be some opportunity there.
Yeah. The Bills offense, they don't have the most dangerous weapons. You mentioned them before, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakur, the tight ends. But, they're a good unit. They know how to play together. Josh Allen is just, absurd at this point in time. And, like I said, the Patriots have a really good, probably the most interesting matchup is going to be the Patriots rush defense, which is, one of the best, in the league. They are 7th EPA rush allowed, against the Bills offense, which is among the best in the league. They are 1st in EPA per rush. So, if the Patriots can do that and make the Bills a little bit more, one-dimensional, then I think that would really go a long ways to helping them because, James Cook's, really good. And, I think that the offensive line is really good. Like I said, pass pro. I think that Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, has a good grasp of things. He has a pretty good scheme. I just don't know how the Patriots stop these guys. And plus, with their issues at linebacker, and who knows, maybe they get Jelani Tavai. That's something that we didn't mention earlier. Jelani Tavai, they started the clock on him. Does that mean he'll play this week? I don't know. Can we take anything from the Christian Gonzalez thing when, came down to it? Vrabel was like, let's wait another week, possibly. We don't know how Vrabel is going to handle these things. Do you put Jelani Tavai next to Robert Spillane? Wouldn't be a bad idea against the run, even though I do think Jack Gibbons has been pretty good against the run. Made some nice plays last week. Christian Ellis, between Christian Ellis and the safeties and the injury situation, I just think, Josh Allen is just going to be picking on people. We could see Carlton Davis get picked on with his injury issues and some of his coverage issues. He's sort of been boom and bust, which is his reputation around the league. I just don't know how the Patriots are going to slow down the Bills offense. They got to hope that the Bills sort of play with their food like they did the previous couple weeks. But they still are like over 30 points a game. So I don't know. Good luck to them.
It'll be interesting to see how the Patriots approach it. Will they blitz the Bills a lot? Will they lay back? The Bills offensive line, you brought up the pressure rates, 21.4%, which is the best in the league. They're also the second best in time to pressure against, 2.9 seconds. So you're getting close to 3 seconds before you get a pressure on Josh Allen, which with this scheme with Joe Brady, that's really difficult. So will the Patriots be aggressive? We'll see. I'm also fascinated by the coordinator battle here, because you mentioned Joe Brady, very respected guy. I've paid attention to him since his LSU days. I think he's a really good offensive mind. He's creative. He did call one kind of weird trick play. It was like a pitch to Shakir on 4th and short. It was like a fake pitch to Cook. He pitched it to Shakir instead, and they lost like 2 yards. It was a brutal play. So maybe he puts that off to the side and doesn't call that for the rest of the year. But he is a creative OC. And then you got Zach Core, who, this is his 4th game calling plays defensively. So, how does that unfold? We'll have to see. All right, before we get to the game pick, don't forget Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. This is not a surprise if you've been listening to this podcast for the past 5 or so years. Greg is 2-2, straight up and against the spread. I am 2-2, straight up and against the spread. Greg and I tend to agree on a lot. We don't talk about it before we record the podcast or go live, but we do tend to see games in a very similar fashion for most of the time. So I'm not shocked that we're both 2-2, straight up and against the spread. I give my pick on Locked On Patriots, so you can check out that a little bit later. But Greg, let's get to you. Bills are -8.5. The over/under is 49.5. Is 8.5 too big of a number?
I think so. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think as long we'll learn a lot about the Patriots and their maturity. I do, like I said before, I do think it's a little early for them. But would I be surprised if they went toe to toe with the Bills on Sunday Night Football? No. And actually, for some reason, and I don't have a good reason other than my gut instinct, I do think they're going to play really well on Sunday night. I think that they're going to take care of the ball, or at least, be sort of even with the Bills in the turnover differential. I do see an opportunity. Drake Maye and Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels against Sean McDermott in this defense. And I do like Sean's scheme, and it's, not overly complicated. And like I said, he will have some designer game plan things in there, but I think Drake Maye having Josh McDaniels at his side and knowing this, Bill's scheme, what they want to do, where the weaknesses are, Drake's maturity at taking, just what's there and keeping the chains moving. I think it really matches up well. And so I think I'm going to pick the Bills because, like I said, I think it's a little early for the Patriots, but, I'm going to pick the Bills by 7. I do think it's going to be a bit of a shootout this game. So I'm going to go, let's see. I'm going to go Bills 33, Patriots 27.
All right. Well, there you go. 33-27, Bills win. But Greg, as of right now, as we record this on Thursday, likes getting the points for the Patriots at 8.5, and he thinks it's going to be a shootout. So bet the over is what Greg tells you to do. Again, I'll be doing my old pick thing at Locked On Patriots. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. We'll see what happens on Sunday night. It's going to be a very interesting game. We'll be back early next week live at about 12:15 on Tuesday. Check us out on YouTube again live on Tuesday. But everybody, enjoy yourself.